Hey guys, welcome back to another Satisfactory video. Now, in my last video with this iron factory that you're looking at now, there was one thing that I talked about and I showed off a little bit that I think that everyone should be using, and it adds so much more potential to your builds, but it also allows you to speed your builds up. And so what we're going to be looking at today is how we can use these blueprint designers, and then how we can create blueprints, and then you can actually use them to make your own builds. Alright, the first thing that we need to discuss is what exactly is the blueprint designer. What the blueprint designer allows you to do is place down any item, like let's say we take this foundation, we can lay this foundation down, and then we can actually save this in the blueprint designer. We can name it whatever, test, whatever, and then we can save that blueprint, and then if we go into our inventory, you'll see a blueprints panel at the top, and now we have TED. I meant to say test. And so that's exactly what that does. So I can now select that, and it pretty much takes over what was saved in the blueprint designer, and now I can copy as many times as long as I have the materials, and I can just copy those and place them down. And one more quick thing that's a great thing to actually be aware of is you actually can't delete the blueprint designer if there are items on that. So if I try to delete this right now, I'm trying to delete the foundations, I accidentally select the blueprint designer, I try to delete, it actually doesn't delete the actual blueprint designer with those items. It only deletes the items, so don't worry if you select this by accident when you are trying to delete something. If you make a mistake, once everything is cleared off of it, then you can delete. Alright, so the first layout that we're going to look at here is actually something that I did use in my iron factory in my last video. Now what I did here was use up pretty much the entire width and length of the entire blueprint designer. So we can see here as I placed all these different machines, and then I did a first floor, second floor, even did all the conveyor, and third floor connected all of the power as well, and then I saved it. Now what that will look like is if I go to my blueprints, we're gonna go to a plate end. You'll see one called the mid there in a second, and I'll show you what I did there. So I'm gonna place this down, and again, as long as you have all the materials that your blueprint requires, it will build it. Now I am using some mods right now, so it does make it a little bit easier. I don't have to worry about that. So if you are gonna be doing this in survival, you just have to make sure you have those materials to actually build all of this at once. That's going to be the one big stipulation that you need to be aware of. But then you can see that it built the entire thing that's replicated from here over to here. Now, another great thing that you can do with the blueprint designer is if you want to build stuff back to back, but not look like it's duplicated back to back, there's different ways you can do that. Now, this one here is the exact same layout as the one that we just looked at, but you're actually seeing that it's missing the pillars and then these small frame pillars along the sides on both sides of this. Now, the reason why I did that is I saved this as a different blueprint, and that way when I go into my blueprints, I can click plate mid. Now, the reason why this is great is now I can place this one right next to the one that we just placed, and it looks like a continuation. We're not going to have a double stack of pillars right next to each other. And then what I would do to finish it off on the left side is go back to and get another plate end, make sure it's facing the right way, and then we can put this down, and now it looks like one continuous build. So that's a great way to also use these designers, is just by doing things like that. Kind of account for it in advance if you're going to be doing something, and then you can easily plan stuff like this out. Okay, so we got our machines placed down and actually they're ready to be used. Now, one thing you also can do is not use them for just machines and builds, but also for more aesthetic pieces as well. So what I did over here was I made a walkway that would work with the builds I have over there. So what I can do is go into my blueprints, choose walkway, and now I can set this up to work with the build that we just put down. And I can place 3 of these, so it's the exact same length as the ones that we just placed down, just like this. So you can see how this can speed up your builds. I've almost built an entire factory in just a little bit of time. Now again, I am using creative for these examples, but you can see again how this will speed things up. Now all of a sudden I have 2 floors worth of walkway with railing, everything's color coded, it will keep the colors that you place, it will recognize the different items that you want to make. All these kind of things will help speed you up. again, you can add more design into the one and then copy it. That's the main thing that I want to stress, is that take more time designing the first, because then that way when you copy it, it has all that extra detail in there already. Okay, so I showed you how to use it with machines. I showed you also like a train support system and some walkways. But one thing that you guys maybe have noticed that you could also use this for is exterior of your factories. So if I wanted to remake my nuclear power plant and I used blueprints, I would have made my angled walls a blueprint, because those things were a pain to make, and making them over and over again took so much time. But using blueprints, what I could have done is make it like this, and then I can use that wall over and over again once I just go into it. So angled wall, copy it, I can now place it here, and if I want to have a second one, I can place this one here, and then I can always put my walls and roofs in between. So again, there's so many different ways that you guys can use these blueprint designers, because they will just speed your builds up. I mean, they've been speeding my builds up tremendously ever since I started using them. So again, I can just do stuff like this quicker now. And then bam, all that would have been done in my nuclear power plant. So again, if I would have had these at the time, I definitely would have used them. Another question that you might be asking is, what do I do if the build that I'm working on is bigger than just a normal 4x4 grid? Now, there's a couple different solutions that you can do when doing this. You can either, if it's a 6x6 for example, you can split it up into 3x3s. Or another solution is, if you are open to the use of using mods, you can get some mods that allow you to get some bigger blueprints. And actually there's one with the Satisfactory mod manager, and it actually is called Blueprint Designer Plus, and it has a lot of different size blueprint designers that you can choose from a 6x6 all the way up to a 12x12. So it's pretty big. There's a lot of different solutions there. Alright, so we went over a lot of the aesthetics and how you can actually use the blueprint designer to build. Now you also have to be aware of some of the limitations. So one of the limitations, like with this one on my iron plate, is you will see I have these conveyor lift floor holes, but I don't have any conveyor on them. Now if you look, if I try to place one, it doesn't allow me to do that. So if you are going to have something on the floor, it won't work with the conveyor floor lifts. So just kind of be aware of that. If they're going up into your build, it's fine as long as it's not going outside of the confinement area. But if you're trying to go down, it won't work. Just be aware of that. Another useful thing to be aware of is if you are going to have blueprints like this that kind of connect together, and you have conveyor that's going to connect all of them together, you know, you might want to look at a system of placing like a beam here that you can actually see which way the conveyor is going to be running. I have this on mine because all the conveyor is running this way, but if I didn't have that piece, let's say if I pick this again, if I didn't have this piece, you can see it there, how do I know which way the conveyor is going when I'm placing this? So having that little marker there allows me to actually see, okay, the conveyor is going this way, so I can connect everything together instead of me messing it up. Obviously, I didn't line this one up correctly, but what I can do is then just take this, and now it connects to that one instead of me placing it backwards. And that's it for this video. Hopefully this video did showcase why you should be using blueprints and the true potential that they have. There's so many different things that you can do with them, and if you really learn to use them, they will really help out how your factories look in terms of efficiency, but then also the amount of detail as well. So again, take the initial time to make that first one great, and then you can copy it from there. So thank you for watching, and I will see you guys for the next video, and hopefully again this video helped you out. Talk to you later. Bye bye.